Hey, John. We do have a quorum, just so you know.
Wonderful, thank you. Brenda, do you think we can get started?
Yeah, we're ready to go when you are.
Great. All right, let's do it. All right, wonderful. Good evening or afternoon, everybody. I'll call the Water and Sewer Board meeting to order. We'll start with Brenda, if you'll take roll for us, please.
Board Member Freeman. Board Member Jolie.
Present.
Board Member Mercier.
Present.
Board Member Ridley.
Present.
Council Member Russell.
Present.
Council Member Ward.
Present.
Mayor Sierra.
Present.
Vice Chair Boreski.
Present.
Chair Moore.
Present. Wonderful. We have a shortened schedule tonight. Council has some duties at our normal time that we are trying to accommodate, so we'll have a rather short agenda and we'll jump to it. Can we start item 3 with the approval of the minutes from our December 10th meeting? I get a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Wonderful. Any edits, corrections, questions? All right, hearing none. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, minutes are approved. Moving on to item 4, the public forum. Brenda, do we have anyone from the public that wishes to address us tonight?
No, we do not.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. Then we'll move on to item 5, just an FYI for the board. We just did a letter of recognition for former Vice Chair Chuck Habenicht's service, 24 years of service to the board. So just again, FYI that I sent a letter on behalf of the board thanking him for his long service serving in that capacity. With that, we'll move on to our one new business item under 6A, and I'll hand that over to, I think, Josh.
Yeah, actually, Chair, I'm gonna introduce this first, and then Josh,
Great.
come on up. So Josh Ferry, who's one of our engineers in utilities, is going to present to you the deep well repair. And I want to just provide a little bit of context to how we've been approaching our source water supply system. We started with understanding what our needs were and shoring up some of the things relative to our Trans Mountain diversion, shoring up the agreements that we have with Centennial, and then ensuring that we're maximizing that utilization of the water resources with profile. Additionally, we are working at creating resiliency in our water supply by connecting from an emergency perspective to Denver Water. That we've talked about that in the past. That's moving forward. So then we get down to this next layer of water supply that we actually have available that has just kind of been the system that has been has been not utilized and not maintained for quite some time. And it is it's the deep basin groundwater wells. So our system is largely a surface water system. However, we do have drilled deep basin wells, Denver Basin wells. These are generally anywhere from about 700 feet deep to 2,500 feet deep. So this is that really deep water. We have rights, we have wells that are drilled. These wells just haven't been maintained in a long time. So the presentation that Josh will be providing tonight is we want to go into that next layer of shoring up our system and our supply by rehabbing systems that are in place that can allow us to yield more water, which is good from a resiliency perspective. So this is something that's come about over the last probably year. It's not directly contemplated as a specific project in the budget, but it is something that's more broadly something that we will do under our water resources programmatic approach. And so we think it indicates where we're at in terms of understanding our water resources system, and then in a prioritized way, rehabbing that system to ensure that we're getting the full yield of what our system allows. And so with that, as a contextual of what is this project, I'm gonna turn it over to Josh because he's done the work on the actual project itself.
Thank you, Peter, for that project introduction. My name is Joshua Ferry. I'm a utilities engineer, and as Peter stated, this project is to repair and rehab an existing deep well that's owned and operated by the city. So Englewood owns 3 deep wells that were drilled and constructed roughly 30 years ago. All 3 wells are currently not in operation due to aging or broken equipment. Since the well permits were issued, the city has had rights to groundwater that these wells draw from that have been accumulating over the years. Due to static water level drops across Denver Basin aquifers, the groundwater will eventually become much harder to pump out. Wells LF-M2 and AM1 on the image in the middle are at the McClellan Reservoir well site, where the water is used to augment storage in McClellan Reservoir. And well LA5 is the 3rd deep well located at the Broken T, which was primarily used for irrigation to support the golf course and is not currently needed as of this time. The 2 wells at the McClellan well site draw from different aquifers, the Arapahoe Aquifer and the Laramie Fox Hills Aquifer. The Arapahoe Aquifer is shallower, less deep, and has more users than the Laramie Fox Hills Aquifer throughout the Denver area, making its static water level less reliable. It's declining faster. So for this reason, well LF-M2 was selected as the best candidate for repair. Apologies, it skipped.
You go too far.
Sorry.
All right.
One more. So this is an overview of the well site. The well discharges into Dad Clark Gulch, which quickly flows into McClellan Reservoir, which is a 200-acre reservoir, also owned and operated by the City of Englewood and the Utilities Department. The well was drilled and the permit was issued in 1993. In 2022, operations staff noticed equipment failure, and the pump has not been run since. Well inspection and capacity test were then conducted. The capacity test concluded that the well will be viable for another 25 to 30 years without the re-drilling. That would implicate a high cost. The well site is large and easily accessible to construction without infringing on any other processes. work. A new 350 gallon per minute pump and motor will be installed lower in the well than the existing pump and motor and be sized for a higher total dynamic head of roughly 1,250 feet. This will allow the well to remain productive while normal drawdown in the aquifer occurs around the pump, and then also serve as a safeguard against the ongoing decline in the static water level as the total aquifer decreases over the years. A run of column pipe will be replaced, a new electrical pipe will be added. Other items include replacing the check valves, along with rehabbing the well and cleaning out some of the debris that's built up over the last 30 years. With this well repaired and fully functional, utilities will be capable of extracting the full water rights allotted to that well and that aquifer within conservatively 10 years. This will total roughly 350 acre feet per year, or 3,500 acre feet over the course of 10 years, which corresponds to just over 1 billion gallons. The RFP was posted this past September and solicited 3 proposal submissions. A selection committee of utility staff scored the proposals and determined Layne Christensen, also known as Layne, a Granite company, provided the best overall proposal. Layne provided the best quality combination of pump and motor, as well as the most experienced team and a detailed well rehab plan. Utility staff recommends a contract for services with Layne, a Granite company, for a total project authorization of $149,600, including a 10% staff managed contingency of $13,600. Thank you. Are there any questions?
So on your original,
Sorry, thank you.
on the original bid, it said that you were pulling, I think, 1520 of the well casing, but you were only putting back in 1320. Is there a reason why, the difference on that? Why not going the full extent of that?
Some of the pipe, sorry, I can get the proposal up. Some of the pipe was reusable throughout the original run
Okay.
to where the pump was initially. However, we're installing the pump lower than it was before, so we need a new run of everything to get the pump lower than it was.
So it will be lower? the
It will be
pump?
lower in the well, correct?
Okay, and was there any sort of filtration to keep the sediment from being pulled up?
There's quite a few screens
Okay.
that prevent the debris from coming through and damaging the pump intake.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Is there any recharge associated with this aquifer? Anyone else that is using it?
So there are other users throughout the Denver area, other utilities, I believe some private users, but comparatively to the Arapahoe aquifer, which is higher up in the Denver Basin, more accessible, easier to drill to, and far more tapped by Denver Basin users, the static water level decline has only averaged about 10 feet per year, which is something that can be easily accommodated. And we have another 25 to 30 years before we would need to do any re-drilling. So that's drilling lower than it currently is.
As it goes to your question about recharge, this is the Denver Basin aquifer is the one that's hydraulically separated from the alluvial systems that are associated with the South Platte. And so this is a kind of a depleting aquifer over time. So if you're down in the South Metro area, Castle Rock, Parker, a lot of those districts down there, their original systems used to be 100% groundwater off of these aquifers. They have spent hundreds of millions, upwards of billions of dollars over the last 20 years to build a parallel surface water system. That's been their overall strategy, because this is not the type of water that you want to rely on wholly. However, it is a water right that we have, a water right that we can produce, and a water right that we own, which is why we think it makes sense to rehab what's already a drilled-in infrastructure. Installing one of these wells is upwards of $1 million to do the original drill. This is just a rehab, which allows us to take that existing infrastructure. As it relates to recharge, this is not a rechargeable aquifer.
Thank you. Yeah, for 150,000 and 3,500 acre feet, that seems like a pretty good deal.
Yeah, it's for an initial investment cost, yeah, and then you got operating costs, but in the grand scheme of things, it's relatively inexpensive water.
I'll build on that, on Ty's question and that answer, Peter, that the rehabbing makes sense and getting this functional in terms of using it. I assume that this probably, for the most part, this just equates to surplus water that we would then sell, at least in the short run. And the follow-up to that is, is depleting the aquifer over time, I'll say the best decision, or, I guess that boils down, if it's going to get depleted by somebody, maybe that's one thing, but that's my question. Would we just be depleting the aquifer for the sake of selling the surplus?
Well, I think when we look at our overall portfolio, this is water that the city has rights to, and there's a number of studies out there as to the rate to which the overall Denver Basin aquifer system, which is these four the Laramie Fox Hills, the Arapahoe, all those are part of that set of aquifers, that depletion rate. What we're doing this for is because we think there's an opportunity to draw water that the city owns, and yes, potentially sell it, but also potentially have it as a backup system for if we have other issues with, if it's a really, it creates resiliency in our water supply, whereas right now we can't access it. So in the short term, it's a business case analysis of, what kind of revenue we would get per versus the cost if we were to sell it. But longer term, more strategically, as there's more pressure on water rights systems on the Front Range, having it available as another way to produce water for our system is the second piece of this. So it's a resiliency piece, a diversity in water rights types, as well as the ability to potentially help offset rate impact to our customers because it is a right that we can sell.
And I think that helps tease it out. It sounds like one possibility is that it is that just additional storage for when we need it. If we fail to use it, do we lose it in the sense that others will get to it before we will? Or is it having it there as a backup for when we need it? Is that a long-term possibility?
So a lot of that depends on what the actual depletion rate of the aquifers is. And so if as a number of these 100% groundwater dependent systems are drawing less water out of the aquifers because they've supplemented their systems with surface water, you see a less of a year-over-year drawdown on these aquifers. The city of Englewood owns these rights. This is part of the city of Englewood's rights. We have rights to this water. And so in the near term, I guess from a really long-term perspective, it depends on what the aquifer does over time, which is still not proven out yet. There's studies that show the decline rate, but nobody knows exactly what that ultimately means. But in the near term, if we're not using it, it's not that we lose the right, we just lose the produced water that could potentially become a resilient backup system, and two, an economic benefit to the system as a whole.
Thank you. Any additional questions?
How's the water quality coming out of these wells?
Do you have information on that?
I don't have numbers, but it's deemed to be cleaner pretty much in all fronts than McClellan Reservoir, what's in there, and that's where it flows straight into, so no issues.
Yeah. So my experience with this from other organizations is it's generally a lot cleaner water. Like Josh said, the issues you sometimes run into is iron and manganese, depending on which aquifer you're drawing. There's different levels of that iron and manganese in aquifer, depending on which aquifer you're in. But if we're pumping it out, we're likely introducing it into our surface water system at that point in time, at which point, we're not going straight into a system that has to treat out that iron and manganese, because it goes into the surface water system. It's generally better water quality than surface water.
Great. All right, can I get a motion for item 6A as written?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any further questions or discussion? All right, very good. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. No, we have no old business tonight, and we just have a little bit of update from staff's choice. Turn it back to you, Peter.
Yeah, and so for the first item, I'm going to turn this over to Sarah. She's actually got some good news.
We get there. It's running a little slow on the advanced slide thing here.
Trying to build it up.
Yeah, it's really, okay, there we go. Yeah, so a couple pieces of positive customer feedback that we received in December. So the first item, and the copy of this letter is on the slide here, but I'd be happy to send it out to the board as well, is that ELCO Drilling, who actually is not in our service area, but did reach out to the City of Inglewood Utilities with concerns of sewage smell and things that back up in their service. And so Ryan Ratcliffe and Adam Kaufman, members of our distribution and collections staff, went out and took extra care of this customer and followed up with this, actually not a customer, but made sure that they got the service that they needed from their sewer provider to ensure that their issue was taken care of and that they were safe. So we got this letter. It was very nicely written. So we just wanted to bring that to the board.
Yeah, and just for a little context on this, so when they initially went out, we didn't know that they weren't our customer. We think it was something associated with our system. I think why we got the letter from them and the recognition, especially Ryan and Adam, is once they determined it was like, well, you're actually technically not ours. They didn't just walk away and say, all right, you're not our system. Go talk to your other provider. And so they just stuck with them to try to help them solve their problem, which is why they sent the letter. And I think it's a good sign of, even though we have boundaries for our water systems, the ability to help our adjacent entities when we can, really reflects back and reflected back in this letter that they sent.
And then the other item of positive customer feedback, so this was a case of paying it forward. A customer came in and asked that they could donate $1,000 to customers in need that had back or overdue balances. Sorry. So this customer said that distribution and collection staff had been to their property twice over the last year in 2024, and again, provided excellent customer service, and this customer really wanted to pay that forward and do something nice over the holiday season. So in December, donated $1,000. That money was then able to relieve the utility bill for 4 customers in need. So we just felt like that was a really great news story to share with all of you. That's all I got.
So Chair, I think that's it. We just wanted to highlight that there is some good news out there.
Great. Next, we'll move to board members' choice. Any board members would like to raise anything tonight?
Actually, Chair, I did have one other thing
Sure.
before we went to that, if we could. And this just came up recently, and I just want to make sure that the board is aware, that we are aware, and we have information on our website on this. But there's these letters that are coming into our customers that are protection plans from a company called HomeServe. It's an affiliation with Excel Energy. So Excel entered into this agreement, is my understanding, with HomeServe to provide basically insurance for electrical service lines, but it expands to water service lines. And so this is not something that we, as a part of what we as the utilities department are, we're just not a part of it. And so the reason why I'm bringing it up right now is because a customer here has a HomeServe notice dated 12/11/24. Please respond within 30 days. Englewood exterior electrical and water service line information. So then a week later on 12/17, the exact same Englewood exterior electrical and water service line information. Please respond within 30 days. And so it feels like there's some pressure to this, and we just want to make sure that we are aware of it. And we have put information on our website with the amount that we're talking about our service lines, because we're a lead service program and things like that. I can see how the customer might get confused and think this is somehow associated with Englewood Utilities. And I just want to, if you're hearing people that are talking about this, this is not something that is something that we have done through Englewood Utilities. And the fact that within a week they've sent 2, please respond by type of communications right around the holidays. Just wanted to bring it to the board's attention that we're aware of it, and if you're hearing of anything on it, that it's not something that's affiliated with utilities.
Great, thank you. All right, back to board members' choice. Any issues the board would like to raise tonight?
I just had a quick question.
Sure.
I noticed on testing on the well, they were going to check the pH levels, which I'm assuming are actually pretty decent coming from groundwater. What is the pH level of Englewood water?
So right now, Josh, do you have that?
Approximately 8.5, around there.
Okay.
And so it's 8.5, and there's a reason why we keep it more on the
Alkaline.
on that side, is because that's what helps to reiterate the protection for that calcification on lead service lines. So we have it at that 8.5 pH based on the studies that have been out there relative to lead service line protection, and working with the state as in terms of their recommendation for us to maintain a pH. And so we'll long-term maintain a pH that's somewhere in that 8.5, maybe a little bit higher range, and that's to help, just continue to ensure that it keeps that protection on those systems.
Yeah, I guess so after the last time.
Yep.
Yep, okay.
Anything else? All right, I'll just add, Peter, maybe given the time, we can do it next meeting, but just I assume we'll get an update sometime soon on how the billing challenges are going and all the questions on the amounts.
We are, yes. So if you've noticed over the last month, there's been a good amount of media coverage, a couple television spots, a couple articles out there. And in all of those, we've addressed this, what the challenge is and where the challenge has persisted. We believe we finally hit a breakthrough with our vendor on fixing the core initial issue, which is showing usage data and the graph being correct. Those bills should be going out next week. Is that right? Later this week? Later this week. So those will be the first bills that are actually showing the information that was on the example bill template that we sent out way back in June of last year. So we've finally gotten that fixed through our vendor. We are continuing to work with customers that believe that there's problems with their bills, to help explain challenges with why it looks really high one month and lower the other month. So we're continuing to, as customers have issues, we want them to bring it to our attention, and we will look into that. We do have a backlog of emails and calls and voicemails that we have brought in additional resources to help gain some ground on. And so we brought in resources from our on-call Hazen, who is now on site with our billing staff 5 days a week, all day for at least the next few weeks to help us get through this backlog. We've also brought in 2 staff from other parts of utilities to help with other areas that are backlogged because our customer service personnel are just continually on the phone working with people on these questions. And so we think we're making some ground on it. We think we're making some headway. Getting to the point where we actually have the bill showing up properly is a big step in the right direction. So the January bills are a little bit late going out, so we think we'll be able to fully recover the schedule in February, if not March. We currently have a suspension of shutoffs and late fees through March. I think we had talked about March 1st, but we just, in those interviews, I said through March, and so we're going to go with through March because we want to give people time to be able to do partial payments, things like that, if they need to. And so I think that's where we're at right now. I think we're making some ground finally, it feels like, in turning the corner on this. But I don't know if you have anything to add to that. Does that about cover it? Okay.
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
Along that lines? Are we sure that there's not another problem? Because this last bill had 2 months of the water bill, the water charge itself. The previous month had no water charge. We've had a new meter reader really for those 2 periods. And the new meter reader sends out a signal every 3 seconds. How could it have missed a water charge altogether in the bill that came out 2 months ago?
So on some of that, there is still staff that needs to go out and take the meter read because there is additional towers that need to be put in place to catch that read every 3 seconds and get it into our system. So we are working on getting that. I think we've got a certain percentage of the city covered, but there needs to be additional infrastructure put in place, which will be coming to read that automatically. So at the moment, there's still staff going out and reading it, and that's likely what would have been missed.
Okay, so do we have enough staff to cover it until more towers are put out?
We do.
Because it's huge when you have 2 months of water on 1 month. So,
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of what people are experiencing. I think the thing that's a little bit different right now that's different than with the summer is it's not summer usage. So it's 2 months of more winter usage, so it's a little bit less of a hit. But it is a challenge because you're hitting for 2 months. And so this is partly the implementation of AMI because it's the meters themselves. But like Sarah said, we've got tower locations that we still have to get put in place. And we're still only about 50 to 60% through the meter change out. And that was always part of the schedule. It was going to take time. And I think if it was happening by itself and we weren't having these other challenges of trying to, of people being able to see what their usage was and what the timing of that usage was, I think those 2 coupled together have created some of the confusion and challenge and rightfully so frustration with our customers. I think they're frustrated and we understand why they're frustrated.
thank you.
Right. Anything further?
Yeah, I have one question.
Okay, cool.
For the usage, I think I asked a variation of this question, but I was just wondering, with the new meters, can we, as the customer, see live usage, or can only the people on the back end see it?
So right now, it's only the people on the back end. That's coming, but
Okay.
we've got to get through the.
And then what's the, is it every 15 minutes, or is it every, hour we see a change in it once we as a customer can see it?
That I'm not sure of. I think it is something, it's in the minutes, it's not in the hours. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's actually a setting that we can set, that, depending on how granular people want to go with their water usage. What we have found, there's been a couple instances where customers have had questions on their bill and their usage was high, and they had a new meter, and we were able to pull out, and we were able to show, water usage, and then it went to zero, and then there was some water usage and went to zero, and then we showed where it was just a constant usage for 48, 72, several days at a small amount, and we said, you might have a leak. They went and looked, and there was a leak. And so that's when we get this fully transitioned and all customers are on these meters, it's going to provide a lot more ability in the initial term for us to at least be able to show that information if there's a problem, and then ultimately get to the point where we want customers to have visibility in how their water usage. And so that's ultimately where we're headed with this. It's going to take a little bit more time, but that's the end goal, is so that you can see what your water usage is at any point in time through the portal on the website.
Thank you.
Okay, anything more? All right, then I will adjourn the meeting and let council get running. Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you.